Welcome to your morning intelligence update from Stylo News. We're here to deliver a concise analysis of the key events shaping the conflict in Europe. Over the past 2 weeks, 3 very distinct patterns have emerged, and we'll be examining each one.
First, our analysis shows a significant strategic shift. Ukraine is no longer just defending its own territory. It's now taking the fight deep into Russia, targeting key assets far, far from the front lines.
Next, in what seems to be a direct response to these growing threats, Europe is undertaking a really historic acceleration of its defense posture. We're seeing a decisive move towards greater self-reliance and industrial strength. And third, we have to ask, how is Moscow responding? Well, it's not with a conventional counterattack. Instead, it's a mix of coercive actions and rhetoric, which is raising tensions on NATO's eastern flank using methods that fall just below the threshold of conventional war. Before we dive into the details, a quick message from our sponsor, ProWave AI. They're the engine behind Stylo's AI-powered open-source intelligence. Okay, let's get right into this first major development, Ukraine's evolving offensive strategy. This isn't just about battlefield tactics anymore. This is about striking at the very core of Russia's ability to wage war.
As you can see from this map, the operational reach of Ukrainian forces has expanded quite significantly. We're seeing a very methodical campaign that's targeting critical infrastructure, aiming to disrupt both military supply chains and, of course, Russia's economic engine.
So the crucial point here is the tempo and the very strategic nature of these attacks. Just look at the progression on this timeline. It moves from military-industrial sites like the microchip plant in Bryansk to a massive drone barrage right on the capital. And then it shifts focus to major energy export hubs like Ust-Luga, which directly impacts Russia's revenue. Now, let's turn to Russia's reaction. It's been less about conventional force and more about what you might call asymmetric pressure. Moscow seems to be engaging in a campaign of coercion and destabilization. To really understand Moscow's actions, we first need to define this concept of hybrid warfare. It's about blending all these different methods, cyber attacks, disinformation, military posturing, all to achieve strategic goals without triggering a full-scale military response. The whole point is to create confusion and sow division. And this is not just some theory. Take this recent incident, for example, where drones crashed in Finland. It was widely seen as a probing action against a new NATO member. And this is happening at the same time as Russian information operations are promoting separatist narratives in Estonia and spreading disinformation across the Baltics. It's really testing the alliance's resolve. This really stark warning from Denmark's chief of defense shows that these hybrid actions are not being seen as isolated incidents. No, they're seen as indicators of a larger, long-term strategic threat. The concern among senior European military leaders is definitely growing.
This brings us right to our third major pattern, a significant, coordinated effort all across Europe to bolster defense capabilities. It seems the warnings are being heeded and a whole continent is rearming.
Perhaps the most direct signal of this shift is financial. The EU has approved a new €1.5 billion program specifically to ramp up weapons production across the continent. This is a very clear move towards greater industrial self-sufficiency. What's really interesting here is how different players are focusing their efforts. At the EU level, the push is for that big picture, pan-European production. Then you have nations like France undertaking a fundamental revision of their military strategy. And on the eastern flank, countries like Estonia and Poland are deepening their direct defense cooperation. Of course, these military developments are happening alongside some intense and, frankly, often conflicting diplomatic maneuvering. The path forward is far from clear because the key players have very different ideas about what an end to this conflict should even look like. The end-state goals you see here are fundamentally different. Ukraine is seeking security guarantees before making any concessions. Russia appears to be using diplomacy as a tool to sustain its campaign. The U.S. administration is focused on a quick end to the war, while EU leaders seem to be pursuing a more pragmatic, long-term integration for Ukraine. So this all naturally leads to the question of what happens next. With all these competing objectives on the table, the potential for diplomatic friction and even miscalculation is quite high. Based on our analysis, here are the most likely events for you to monitor in the near term. These are the dates and developments that could really serve as inflection points in the coming weeks. These 3 upcoming dates are pivotal. On April 8th, France will reveal its new military strategy.
Then on April 12th, elections in Hungary could alter the political dynamics inside the EU. And finally, around April 16th, ceasefire talks proposed by Ukraine will be a real test of the current diplomatic climate. So we've just covered the what. For the why and the how, and for a much deeper analysis of these trends, we invite you to listen to our full Stylo News Intel update. It's available now on your favorite platform.
Thank you for tuning in. To stay ahead of the narrative, subscribe to Stylo News for AI-powered intelligence, which is available on the web and on our mobile apps.